Hello, Petals. Oh, you're getting on. How are things? How's everything been going? Been absolute mayhem here, and I can't even. But I'd rather know about how you guys are doing, and because it has been a bit longer than I intended, but it just seems life's taken over a lot these days, and I really need to just put space aside for this because it makes me so very, very happy, and I do really enjoy it. And yes, anyway, enough about that. Okie dokie. So, spring's really taken off over here. A lot of hay fever and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, I don't know where the time's going. I have got a big project that I've been finishing for the author I normally work for, which is absolutely very exciting and so much fun. So I'm really enjoying that. Yeah, but if you could do the usual and hit the subscribe button, the likes and the shares and the notifications bell, it really helps the channel. But I really should just record more. That would be a really good idea. So this one's 12 pages, so we should be able to get through all of it. If not, I'll do a part 1 and part 2, but we shall see how the voice holds out and how we get on. So wish me luck, brace yourselves, let's get comfy. Chapter 14 of Flying Dutch by our beloved, our hallowed, the most amazing Mr. Tom Holt. No, said Mrs. Mackay firmly. Go away. Now look, said the policeman. You really will have to leave now, Mrs. Mackay. It's just not safe to stay here. Mrs. Mackay considered this for a moment. Have you been listening to my daughter in Edinburgh? She asked suspiciously. Catriona. I didn't know you had a daughter in Edinburgh, Mrs. Mackay. A likely story. Mrs. Mackay sniffed. She doesn't really want me to go and live with them. Not that I would, let me tell you. Not if I was starving in the gutter. It's this house she's after. Of course it is. Well, you can just tell her that if she thinks she's going to lure me out of my own house where I was born and then put me in a home in Edinburgh. Now, Luke, and you should be ashamed of yourself, Mrs. Mackay went on, conniving with the likes of her. Call yourself a policeman. Go away. She slammed the door, and the policeman closed his eyes and counted to 10. Would it really matter terribly much, said a voice under his cap, if the silly old bag got burnt to death in a radiation storm? Mrs. Mackay, he shouted through the letterbox. Now, I've wasted enough time as it is, so unless you open this door. Just then, a party of naked men walked past. Hold on a minute. Unless you open this door, I'm going to have to break it down. Do you understand me? So wouldn't it be much better all round if... Excuse me, said one of the naked men. He had a cat under his arm. One moment, sir, said the policeman, not looking around. Mrs. Mackay. Then something connected in his brain. He turned around and stared. Have you seen a naked man about wandering with no clothes on? Asked the naked man. You see, we sent him to find some clothes, but he really shouldn't be out on his own. He's not terribly bright. He's about 5'4", black hair. Dark brown, interrupted another naked man. Thank you, Sebastian. Dark brown hair, thick beard, blue eyes. I think they're blue, but to tell you the truth, I never was very interested, so I may be wrong. The policeman rubbed his eyes and forehead. Are you from the rigs? He asked. I beg your pardon. The oil rigs. No, said the naked man. No, we're not from the oil rigs. I would imagine they were all evacuated some time ago. I take it you haven't seen him. The policeman nodded. It seemed to use up most of his available strength. Oh, well, said the naked man. Thanks anyway. By the way, the crisis is over. You can bring everyone back now. It's safe. Safe? Yes, said the naked man. Look. He held up a blue egg-shaped pebble and pointed to it. There, see, he said, back to normal residual radiation levels. He walked over to Mrs. Mackay's letterbox, lifted the flap, and shouted through it. It's all right now. You don't have to go. Panic's over. Are you a doctor? Said Mrs. Mackay's voice on the other side of the door. No, said the naked man. My name is Vanderdecker. An idea seemed to occur to him, and he said, Do you by any chance have any men's clothes we could borrow? There are 14 of us. The policeman started to protest, but the effort was just far too much for him. He sat down on the step and looked carefully at the soles of his shoes. 14, said Mrs. Mackay. Are you the Salvation Army? Not really, Vanderdecker replied, but we would be very grateful if... Go away, said Mrs. Mackay. All right then, said Vanderdecker, be like that. He came away from the door, and one of the naked men whispered something in his ear. He nodded and approached the policeman. Excuse me, he said. The policeman looked up. Now then, he went on, am I right in thinking you're a police officer? The policeman thought hard, and then nodded. Vanderdecker smiled. That's good, he said. The policeman thanked him. Now, Vanderdecker continued, my friend and I are just going to break into that shop over there. He pointed to the small, stone-built house across the narrow main street. There was a sign by the gate that read, Local Handicrafts and Tweeds. But, Vanderdecker went on, please don't think that we're looting, because we're not. It's just that we lost all our clothes in the power station, and we're beginning to feel a bit conspicuous. So if that'll be all right with you now, it'll be all right now, won't it? The policeman said that, yes, he supposed so, and Vanderdecker smiled again. It was a friendly, comforting sort of smile, implying that there was someone who knew, that here was someone who knew what he was doing. The policeman was indeed very grateful. Right then, that's marvellous, he said. And when the proprietor gets back, will you please ask him to send a bill to Professor Montalban, Greathead Manor, near Cirencester, Gloucestershire. Have you got that? Perhaps you'd better write it down. The policeman wrote it down in his little notebook and looked up at Vanderdecker, as if he was asking for approval. Narrator's note. I wonder what policemen use these days. Do they still use a notebook, or do they have a little kind of like digital note taker? I don't know, I'm just wondering. The policeman wrote it down in his little notebook and looked up at Vanderdecker, as if asking for his approval. Vanderdecker nodded and turned to walk away. Then he checked himself and said, Oh, and by the way... Yes, sir, said the policeman. We don't smell funny, do we? No, sir, said the policeman. You're sure about that? Positive, sir. Absolutely sure. You haven't got a cold or anything? No, sir. And you're not just being polite, are you? We won't be offended if... The policeman shook his head vigorously, then sat down on the step again, buried his face in his hands and started to hum softly. He looked rather tired, and it had been a long, long week. What with the power station blowing up and his grandmother dying and his wife insisting on a trial separation. Fine, Vanderdecker said. Now, Sebastian, Jan Christian, find a stone or a lump of wood, something we can use as a battering ram. Dirk, will you just hold this cat for me? Watch out, it scratches if you're not careful. Come along now, we haven't got all day. About 20 minutes later, Vanderdecker and the crew of the Verdomd came out of the craft shop. They were all wearing more or less identical clothes, Shetland wool pullovers, hairy tweed jackets, caps and kilts, except that where all the others' pullovers had a design of little white sheep on them, Vanderdecker's had a single black and white panda, like some sort of military badge of rank. Narrator's note, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, actually. I think I could quite like a panda as a badge of honour. Anyway, no, Vanderdecker said, all we've got to do is find Antonius. Narrator's note, I must apologise for my accents today, they're just all wonky. Easier said than done, Sebastian muttered. He had wanted the panda, and he was absolutely blatantly sulking. True, Vanderdecker admitted, but all we've got to do is imagine we're idiots too, and then we can sort of reconstruct his thought processes. Just then, Antonius himself appeared. He was wearing a quiet grey suit under a duffel coat, and he stared. Hello, Skip, he said. I went back to the power station, but you'd all gone. Why are you wearing those funny... Hello, Antonius, Vanderdecker said briskly. Right, now let's all go and have that drink, shall we? He sighed and walked over to where the policeman was sitting. Excuse me, he said. The policeman opened his eyes and shuddered. Sorry to bother you again, Vanderdecker said, but can you by any chance tell us where we can get a drink around here? The policeman pointed down the street to a building labelled Hotel. Vanderdecker thanked him. Maybe you'd like to join us, he added. You look like you could use a drink. No, said the policeman forcefully. "Never again." Then he got up and started to run. Vanderdecker shrugged. "Be like that," he said. "Now then, the drinks are on me." The crew of the Verdonde hastened away up the street, leaving it entirely deserted. For about 5 minutes, there was a perfect peace and quiet, except for the distant sound of a hotel door being smashed in, and after that the complete and utter tranquillity for which the Highlands of Scotland are so famous. Then there was a clattering, roaring noise as a helicopter swung down low over the village, hovered for a moment, and soared off in the direction of Doon Ray Power Station. Very carefully, Professor Montalban picked himself up off the ground and applied his mind. Being a scientist, he went about things in a systematic and methodical way. He therefore started with his head, yes, that was still there, and it seemed to be functioning properly. Then his arms, then his trunk, legs and feet, all present and correct. Good, but extremely surprising. The force of the explosion had been so enormous that he had been certain, in the 10th of a microsecond available for contemplation of the matter, that nothing on Earth could possibly have survived it. Well, it only went to show how dangerous it was to jump to purely intuitive conclusions. Another strange thing was the way the building was still intact. Mostly intact. The huge steel girder that seemed to remember falling on his head suggested that bits of it had indeed come loose. But what did you expect from modern builders? Nobody seemed to take pride in their work anymore. "Oh," the professor said to himself, "a cup of tea and a slice of homemade Victoria sponge." He removed the cinders from his eyes and looked carefully about him. No fire, no smoke, no signs of anything much out of the ordinary. Most peculiar. He wandered away in the direction of the computer room. The sudden, violent explosion was puzzling him, and he had a theory he wanted to put to the test. "As I thought," he told himself smugly, examining the wreckage of the plutonium cell. It was his own design, completely revolutionary and top secret. It was also, now, broken, but he didn't mind that. The question that had been bothering him was what made the plutonium go off pop like that, and here it seemed was the answer. One of the idiots from the ship had opened the door and gone in. There had been nothing between him, or to be precise, the smell, and the plutonium itself. The plutonium had, in combination with the unique carbon compounds found only in the gases comprising the smell, undergone a rapid chemical reaction and evolved into a completely harmless isotope of itself. Now, since to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, one of his more felicitous sayings, he always thought it stood to reason that something had happened to the smell-bearer. Montalban looked round. There was nothing, not a scrap of bone or a fragment of charred scalp. Nothing. They'd obviously just disintegrated, turned back into clouds of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Kaput! "Oh dear," said Montalban to himself. He was thinking of the Vanderdecker policy. How terribly awkward. "Our next programme here on Radio 3, said the horribly plummy voice Jane had got sick of listening to, is Wagner's opera, Die Fliegende Holländer, broadcast in the 1956 Deutsche Grammophon recording with..." It turned out to be a coincidence, of course. Jane had found the professor's spare decoder in the bathroom. Easily done. She just carried the portable radio around the house and waited until something talked back. In this case, the toilet roll cover. And all it could make of Wagner's early masterpiece was a jumble of incoherent sounds, with the occasional random word, such as hippopotamus and canasta, rising above the noise. Did anybody ever play canasta? Is it a card game? It sounds like a card game. It must be a card game. I'm sure it's a card game. She switched them both off, tried Ceefax one more time, Adelaide 6, Darwin's 5, and gave the whole thing up as a dead loss. The longer she waited, her reason told her, the better. So far, no clouds of radioactive dust or great searing flashes of heat had interrupted the calm of a wet Cotswold day, which argued that Doon Ray hadn't blown up. Or at least, not yet. Narrator's note, if you do hear Ellie in the background, my big apologies. She's taken it hard about Yuffie passing, and she does She is grieving. She is grieving, and it breaks my heart every time, and I have to keep going down and checking on her. So this is a bit of a spotty recording, so please excuse me for that. When all was said and done, she wasn't all that bothered about Dounreay and the fate of the north of England. Hey now! Hey now! Or Europe. Not that she had anything against them, of course, but what she was really worrying about was what happened to one man. Crazy. Just suppose he did come back. What then? The best way to get rid of the yearning for something, she'd always found, was to imagine what it would be like if the dream came true. Once you imagined that, you usually found that you didn't want the happy ending after all, not at any price. And the technique was particularly sound in her experience when it came to men. In the past, when she had felt that dreadful cloying having eaten too much Black Forest Gateau feeling about someone, Black Forest Gateau. There was one time when I actually was going to make myself a Black Forest Gateau, kind of like a rum and raisin sort of thing going on. And, you know, it was one in the early days of baking and stuff. And I thought, I know, I'll put half a litre of rum into the cake mixture. That'll be fine. That'll turn out just great. Instead of actually soaking the raisins in the rum. Don't do that. It just turns into kind of like a kind of soup, a thick, slurry soup, which you can't drink and you can't eat, and you're just looking at it with a forlorn look on your face going, I wasted half a bottle of rum on that. Sad face. Anyway, I want Black Forest Gateau now. Right. She had felt that dreadful cloying, having eaten too much Black Forest Gateau feeling about someone. She conjured up a vision of living with him, ironing for him, holding things and getting sworn at when he put the kitchen shelves up. But in this case, for some reason, it didn't seem to work. Perhaps it was because what she was feeling now wasn't anything like eating too much cake. It was more of a sort of understanding of what her life had been about all these years. It had simply been fate's rather cack-handed way of making sure she was there at the right time in the right place to meet Cornelius Vanderdecker, the Flying Dutchman. And why, Miss Dorland, was that such a good idea? Because. No other reason. Just because. If he had been handsome or charming or generally wonderful in some other obvious way, it wouldn't be the same thing at all, because when the wonderfulness had worn off, there wouldn't be anything left except a lot of really, really real life. What Jane liked about Vanderdecker was the way she liked him. Anyway, Miss Dorland, your Vanderdecker is quite probably not coming back, so there. And that, after all, was what he wanted. There was no getting away from the fact. Apparently, he doesn't think I'm worth staying around for, and who can blame him? Pull yourself together, have something to eat. Jane was halfway through a cold chicken salad when the sound of rotor blades outside the house made her heart explode inside her. Aha! Dumping her knife and fork, she sprinted out of the door, quite forgetting that she wasn't wearing any shoes until she set foot on the gravel path. But only one man got out the helicopter. One man she'd seen before, and who wasn't quite the same somehow. "Professor!" she screamed. "What's happened?" The professor ducked under the rotor blades and walked towards her. I always imagined the professor to be kind of like Nigel Farage. He sent 2 freaking flyers to my house already. I'm like, no, don't think so. Anyway, I digress. He's crooked as a freaking 9-bob note, that fella. Ah, said the professor. Miss Dolan, I'm glad you're still... Is he all right? He? The professor raised an eyebrow. Vanderdecker, Jane howled. Is he all... Alas, said the professor, I fear not. A great loss, but I feel sure that Jane seemed to deflate like a balloon, and if it hadn't been for her clothes holding her together, she would probably have melted onto the ground like a collapsing candle. The professor smiled sympathetically and said, There. Were you there when it... Not exactly, Montalban replied, but I feel there can be no doubt in the matter. There was quite simply nothing left. It's what he wanted, you know. And he has unquestionably saved the lives of thousands, if not... Oh, go to hell, Jane snapped. It's all your bloody fault anyway. Montalban's avuncular air seemed to wobble slightly, like the picture when a pigeon sits on the aerial. May I remind you that if it were not for my elixir, he would probably have died in the 1570s. I don't think that he... But Jane wasn't listening, which was a pity, the professor thought, as there really was something rather important they should be talking about. Although he understood pretty well everything else in the universe, from the nature of matter to the music of the spheres, the professor, as he would have been the first to admit, had never known what to make of women. He shrugged his shoulders slightly, smiled again, and
went in search of Eccles cakes. You see, there you go, that's the answer. Cake. That's the answer. Jane slowly started to compose. Do you know something? I've just noticed that Mr. Holt has actually mentioned cake twice in this particular sentence. Well, this particular kind of paragraph. I think he's the one that's more into cake than we are. Jane slowly started to compose herself. This is probably how jellyfish feel, she told herself. No bones. They manage, so I suppose I shall have to manage too. A nuisance, but there it is. Back to work tomorrow morning, and that's the end of your holiday. As she started towards the house, the helicopter pilot ran up to her and put something in her hand. Here, he said, this is for you. The other one who smelled so horrible said to give it to you. I don't know what it's all about, but the professor there was mad keen to get his hands on it. Lucky I was flying the chopper, or I think he would have tried to grab it off me. Jane stared at the worn brown wallet the pilot had handed her. She recognised it, and she could feel something tearing at her insides, doing all sorts of damage to nerves and muscles. She thanked him and walked away. Policy. She remembered now. He had wanted her to have the policy, keep it safe for him. Well, yes, what good was that now to anybody? She opened the wallet and found the hard, folded vellum sheet, and breathing was suddenly rather difficult. Under the porch light, she opened it and looked at it, and her eye fell on the coupon on the back. She read her name and the signature under it, and that was enough to finish her off, but not strangely enough to stop her running after the helicopter pilot and having a word with him. Inside the house, the professor was talking on the telephone, his mouth full of Eccles cake. He had been busy. So many people to notify, governments to inform, evacuations to call off, that sort of thing. Now he needed to attend to his own affairs, which were shortly going to be in a rather terrible mess. He heard the door slam and put the phone down, ignoring the minister at the other end of the line. He could wait, Miss Doland could not. It was vital that they had a quiet chat immediately. "Miss Doland," he called out, "are you there?" "Yes," Jane said, walking into the room. "I expect you want to have a word with me." "Oh, you've got another gun. How nice for you. I'm just going to finish my salad." She walked into the kitchen, ignoring the menacing barrel of the Colt 38 that was trained on her, and smothered her lettuce with salad cream. Good lass. After a few mouthfuls, she became aware that she was not alone. "Do you mind?" she said. "It's terribly rude to threaten to kill people while they're eating." "Miss Doland," said the professor, "this time I'm afraid I have to be serious. Unless you hand me that policy document immediately, I shall have no option but to shoot you." He cocked... God. Oh, I'm such a child. He cocked the hammer of the pistol and waited for a reaction. All he got was the sound of crunching radish. Good lass. "Wouldn't do that if I were you," Jane said. "I'm afraid my patience has run out, Miss Doland," said the professor grimly. "This time..." "You're missing the point," said Jane, and pointed a half-gnawed drumstick at him. "If you shoot me, it'll cost you a great deal of money." "What?" "Stands to reason," Jane said, opening a jar of beetroot. "Now, I'm not a lawyer, God forbid, but if I die, I believe the proceeds of the policy will form part of my estate. All clear so far? Good. Now, since I haven't made a will, all my property passes on my death to my next of kin, which will probably be my parents. If you kill them, it'll pass to theirs. I have a large family, Professor Montalban, and if you go around knocking them all off, somebody is going to notice sooner or later and put you away for the rest of your life. Given your rather peculiar circumstances, all that adds up to a hell of a lot of porridge. Have a pickled walnut. They're excellent." There it is. No, never had one of those. Must try one. "No, thank you," said the professor. "They give me indigestion. You're overlooking the fact that nobody but you and I know about the assignment of the policy, or even that it exists." "Don't count on it," Jane said through a mouthful of pickled walnut. "I mean, there's the helicopter pilot for one." "The helicopter pilot?" "The one who gave me the policy. Nice man, who wrote down the policy number and everything. I also wrote a short letter to my parents, enclosing full details, which he said he'd post for me when he got to Yeovilton. He should be nearly there by now. I've read your stuff, Professor. Talking of which, have an olive." "I do not want an olive, Miss Doland." "More fool you, then," Jane replied. "It's at times like these you need an olive in order to make sense of things. But I suppose you've been stuffing your face with cakes and biscuits. They're very bad for you, you know."
Sacrilege! Not my business. I make these absolutely cracking peanut butter cookies with chocolate chips. Dark chocolate chips. But I do it so all kind of like low fat, low sugar. They're absolutely freaking lovely and they keep you going all day.
The professor sighed and put the revolver down on the worktop. Then he put the kettle on. That's bad for you too, you know, Jane told him. Think of what all that tannin is doing to the lining of your stomach. Do you know, I really liked Jane Dolan, but she doesn't like cake and she doesn't like tea. Now, come on now, that's just rude. Academic, Miss Dolan, said the professor. Purely academic. You forget that. Hold on, Jane said, laying down her fork. I know you are, and so was he. But you survived. He was nearer the blast than I was, the professor said. Running away, were you? Yes, the professor didn't seem particularly proud of himself. Perhaps, Jane said, we could do a deal. A tiny part of her, which had been taken by surprise by what her lips had just said, protested. Seriously, deals and everything. I can't get that word out of my freaking head right now. He knew. He just knew. A tiny part of her, which had been taken surprise by what her lips had just said, protested, but the rest of her shut it up. Why else, she thought, had he given her the policy? Might as well get it over with. Certainly, the professor said quietly. What had you in mind? Well, for a start, Jane said, about the rainforests. Simon Courtenay felt in his pockets for his keys, and then realised that he didn't need them. The door of his hotel was very open, and not just ajar or even standing wide, it was unconditionally open. What was left of it? He swore. Ever since he had sold his house in Surbiton to buy the Highland Hotel of his escapist fantasies, he had been waiting for the moment when the very peculiar natives of this area finally lost control and went berserk. He had often noticed them out the corner of his eye, staring at him and muttering in Gaelic, but he had hoped they would refrain from an actual violence and damage to his property. Well, he should have known better. From the bar came the sound of drunken singing and the sound of smashing glass. He considered whether he should call the police, but then remembered that they would be Scottish too, and likely to join in and help their countrymen. It was up to him. He picked up a chair leg. For some reason there was a lot of chair legs lying about his premises tonight, very few of them with chairs attached. And he walked into the bar. We are sailing, home again across the sea, sang the drunkards in kilts lying around the gutted bar. I can't really sing in a Dutch accent, so you just have to have that one. Do you know something? Fun fact, that song came out on the day I was born, believe it or not. I digress. I think it did anyway. They each had their own personal bottle of his very expensive and select stock of malt whiskies, except for one who was spilling a lot of beer in the attempt to find his own mouth. Pissed as rats, the lot of them. Disgusting. We are sailing stormy waters, to be with you, to be free. That will do, Simon said in his very best stiff upper lip manner. Out, the lot of you. The man with the beer looked at his watch. A pity that his watch should have been on the wrist of the hand he was holding the glass in, and said, Hellstead, is that the time already? In an accent that Simon couldn't exactly place, but which certainly was not Scottish. Hang on, said the man with the beer all over his kilt. It's only 10:15, drinking up time, he added. Give me another pint of Guinness and have one yourself. If you don't all clear out of here in 1 minute, Simon said, I'm calling the police. Bloody British licensing laws, grumbled one of the other drunks. God, what a country. Come on, said the beer drinker. Let's be going. I think we've outstayed our crisis at the time. Look, he said to Simon, is your telephone anywhere? Simon pointed to an overturned bookcase. Under there, he said grimly. The man grinned sheepishly. Afraid we've made rather a mess, he said. Sorry about that, but we've just saved the world, you see, and I promised Antonius a drink afterwards. Really? Said Simon. James Bond, are you? No, said the beer drinker. Vanderdecker, Julius Vanderdecker. And you've just saved the Scout's honour. Now let me just make a quick phone call, and just then there was the sound of rotor blades overhead, making the whole building shake. It seemed to go on for a very long time, and Simon could not bear it, not on top of everything else. I had one of those days yesterday, strangely enough. He sat down on an overturned Space Invaders machine and started to cry. Meanwhile, Vanderdecker was yelling into the telephone. Jane! Oh, it's you. It's Jane. She hasn't gone. Yes, it's me. Yes, of course I'm alive. Why? They don't have telephones in. Well, get her then. Thank you, Jane.
It's me. Sorry if I've dragged you out of bed. Oh, yes, it's me, and I'm not... You what? Say it again. Oh, that's nice. Look, I just got to find a helicopter and... Hang on. Won't be a minute. Yes? He added, turning to see who had tapped him on the shoulder. He registered something and turned back to the telephone. It's all right, he said. It's a telly bloke, you know. Danny something. Bennett? Yes, that's it. God knows what he's doing here. He turned away from the receiver again. Hey, have you got the... Oh, that's yours outside, is it? Could you get them to turn the bloody thing off? I'm trying to make a call here. You're still there? Good. Listen, Danny's got a helicopter. We'll be with you soon. Yes, you too. Now, there are people listening. Right, see you then. He put down the receiver and stood up. I've been looking for you, Danny said. Have you? I thought you were dead. Sorry. I thought you were... You'll have to speak up. I thought you were dead. Vanderdecker laughed very loudly. You too, he said. Fat chance. Come on, let's be going. He turned and looked around the room. You lot, he said. This bloke's giving us all a lift to Cirencester. Why do we want to go to Cirencester? Asked Peter Pretorius. I've been there. It's a dump. That was in 1647, Vanderdecker said. You'll probably like it now. Come on, all of you who are coming. There was some grumbling to be said, but the crew slowly picked themselves up and started to troop out. Danny noticed something. Hey, he said, you don't smell any more. Thank you, said Vanderdecker. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Well, he added, remembering, almost. Look, do me a favour, will you? Sure, Danny replied. What? Vanderdecker pointed to Simon and said, write this bloke a cheque. 1,000 ought to cover it. £1,000, Danny exclaimed. Now hang on. Oh, it's all right, Vanderdecker said. I'll pay you back when we get to Cirencester. I have an idea I'll have a great deal of money when we get to Cirencester. Peter, grab the cut. Danny shrugged and wrote out a cheque for £1,000, which he handed to Simon, who stared at it. He was still staring at it a quarter of an hour later, when the helicopter had gone away again and he was alone in a wrecked bar with a lot of broken chairs, a cheque for £1,000 and a Geiger counter in the shape of a Fabergé egg. Well, we got through that one, didn't we? Goodness gracious. So, yes, chaos. If you find that yourself in a situation where you do need to kind of ground yourself, just like put your hand on something. I'm not going to be calling myself a psychologist or a counsellor or something. I'm just saying what works for me. This is anecdotal, absolutely. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Just put your hand on something solid. Literally something solid. And then just look at all your senses. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you touch? What do you taste? Just work through those. Kind of works. I kind of like that one. And take yourself to your happy place. So it's true. Just find somewhere where you've actually found yourself was at total peace and tranquility. Right, the next chapter is a bit of a beefy one. So we've got 3, 6, I can't count. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 20. Well, we might have to do it in 2 goes, but we will do our very best. I might even do a live run for it. So here's the question of the day. Would you like me to do a live recording of the last chapter to do it all in one run? Or would you be happy for me to do it in 2 goes? So the answer would be live, or live chapter. Actually, live would look like live, which would be really bad. Yes, yeah. So yes, either do like... live chat or do 2 parts or do 1 part. Yeah, just put a comment in there, say what you'd fancy and what you think would be good. So lovely beans. I know everybody's probably not going to be around as much because the hot weather's coming in and everybody's enjoying it and thinking it's absolutely awesome. It really isn't. But I am here. Drop me a line. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know how things are. I'll give proper shout outs on the next one. I promise, because you all are the most amazing people and I adore you and you're absolutely awesome. And bye, yeah, because it's been a rough year. I can't even. But good news is, well, I don't know if it's good news. I didn't want another dog. I didn't because like my heart can't take it, to be perfectly honest with you. But Ellie's really, no matter what I do, she's really struggling and grieving. She doesn't like being upstairs for some reason. I don't know what it is, and I can't obviously record downstairs. So it's a case of I'm in a bit of a catch-22. So I still go like every hour, give her lots of loves and attention and that sort of thing. But she is crying an awful lot. So I am actually actively looking for another dog.
Probably just be another Jack Russell. Well, this, like, Yuffie was a rat terrier, so she was half the size of a Jack Russell, so I don't know. We'll have to see. I hate considering getting another animal so soon after Yuffie, but the thing is, it's just Ellie's really having a rough time of it, and yeah, she's struggling. She kind of like does that sort of like, you know, when they're howling and they're actually literally just like, you know, like ooh, that sort of howl. And she also has like the barking tantrums, like barking howl. So I've really got to make sure that I do something active. I've given her like, you know, kind of toys to keep her active and all that sort of thing, but it just doesn't seem to be doing what it needs to be doing. Anyway, my lovely beans, I will be back soon. Most of all, keep yourself safe. If you're too hot, keep hydrated. If you're too cold, wrap yourself up warm. If it's a rainy day, have some nice gum boots and a frog umbrella. I think would be quite nice for this time of year. Little froggy umbrella, little daisy umbrella, that'd be quite nice. Umbrellas are absolutely awesome. Anyway, you had enough of me waffling now. I've been going on for about 35 minutes. No matter about anything that's going on around the world, I'm so grateful for all of you and I appreciate you. And take care of yourself, Petal. Talk to you soon.